So what did she say?
Okay, so, hi, welcome, people.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wildheart podcast, where...
Passion meets purpose. Anyways, as I was saying, we went out for McDonald's yesterday. Yesterday?
Rotten Ronnie's.
Yesterday. And on the Happy Meal box, there was a joke that was like, it's like, what kind of key opens a banana?
Okay.
So I was like, hey, daughter, what kind of key opens a banana? And she's like, why are you asking me that?
A monkey?
Yeah, and I was like, it's a joke. You're supposed to, like, I'm trying to tell you a joke. And she's like, oh.
Very serious.
This is deadpan. It was so great.
Why are you asking me that?
I know.
That's I feel like that's right on par with what Papa would say.
Oh, it was hilarious. I died.
YouTube not responding.
Oh, that was a beautiful joke. Well, at least we caught it on one camera.
Let's just check to make sure we're live.
Yeah, I was gonna say stand by while we explore our technical difficulties. That? No, you. Apparently, I devolved to grunts.
All right, looks like we're live.
Oh, we're muted. Okay, good.
Well, we might not be muted.
No, I meant we were muted on that. We're not muted on this. Our desktop audio did.
It might be back feeding right now. We'll see.
That's awful.
Anyway, welcome. A little bit of technical difficulties. We're figuring things out as we go.
We're still muted on that one. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't mind. They don't need to hear double the volumes. We're talking about... What are we talking about?
I was going to say you decided that we were going to talk about unplanned home birth stories and stuff.
It's an uncommon situation, but I feel like it's probably something some people might want to know about.
Yeah, if there's ever an apocalypse and you really need to know how to deliver a baby.
Funny enough. You don't need an apocalypse.
What kind of pocky lips too?
What kind of pockies have an ellipse?
Anyways.
Yeah.
So, we decided today that we were going to discuss home birth, unplanned home birth, and what you might need to prepare and experience.
If you are unprepared, what are some good things to do last minute that you probably have around the house that as we had to experience ourselves?
Yeah, little known fact, that's how our son was delivered.
Yes.
Should I regale the tale?
Let's regale the tale.
Okay, very quickly, because, I could talk about this for hours. Well, we had a midwife appointment, because thank God I had a midwife. Had a midwife appointment on...
Get a midwife.
Yes. Had a midwife appointment on the Monday, I think it was. Whatever. It was the day before I gave birth. And so we were there. I was almost 41 weeks. And she was like, cool. We could do a membrane sweep, which is just something that they do to try and help speed labor along or induce labor. Excuse me. And so I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'm 41 weeks. If this doesn't work, like, people tend to get a little weirded out, and you want to move forward with that. So, and then that was around that same time that you joked around about, like, oh, because I kept saying, like, I had a sweep with my daughter, and, like, that was what kind of kickstarted my labor, and I was like, I want to make sure that, like, I have your numbers and all that stuff so that if I go into labor, I can call you, and I'll probably call you early and blah, 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 all this stuff, because I was paranoid that I was going to give birth at home because my daughter came so quickly.
Well, funny enough.
No, hold on. And then you said what to the midwife?
I read a book, so I am prepared. I was fully prepared. No, I was not. But I was aware of the things to look for, and I was aware of kind of the sequence of how things flow, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then...
And that book, by the way, is the SAS Survival Guide. Yeah, that's it. It,
cool.
It literally has like a little chapter. It's good read.
Awesome. Anyways, we come home, and it was, I don't know, it was sometime in the evening. I started experiencing cramping and like back pain, and I was like, oh, this is weird, but like I've always had, not always, but like during my pregnancy, I continued to have like back pain, SI joint pain. I was like, this is normal. And then the cramping, like that can just be normal after a sweep anyway. So I never thought anything of it. Apparently I was in back labor and I didn't notice. I didn't notice until, 7 o'clock in the morning. I woke up to like a full-blown contraction. I was like, whoa, this is intense. I don't remember them being this intense this quickly.
I feel like it was later. No?
Ooh, it was 7
I was already
o'clock in the
gone to
morning.
work.
Yes, you were.
Okay.
7 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, I'm like, all right, cool. And then I started timing about 7:15-ish on my contractions, and they were pretty regular. But today was the day we needed to sign up for swimming lessons for the summertime, so I did that first. It was opening at 8. And then after I signed this up, I went and I chatted with my daughter because she was in our bed. She had snuck into our bed that night. And meanwhile, I'm like, I'm still having some pretty intense contractions. This is fun. So I know I'm in labor. So then my next step was I call my midwife and I'm like, dude, I'm in labor. We're gonna just, I'll initiate our plan of like, making sure we have childcare, get Tony back home, and like do all that stuff. And like she was gonna get ready and head off to the birth center that we were gonna meet her at. Fast forward several minutes, my sister-in-law comes and gets our daughter. It is about 9:30, and I am still having some pretty regular contractions, and I'm like, we gotta get going. So I call my midwife back, and I'm like, okay, as soon as I get home, or as soon as Tony gets home, we are on our way. Like, we are meeting you there. I'm like, he's coming.
It's time.
Baby's coming. And she's like, okay, cool. 15 minutes later, you hit the door because I stupidly locked it. You come in and you're running around
getting
grabbing
the bags.
Everything. Meanwhile, as you literally hit the door, I was on the floor, hands and knees style, having the worst contraction that I had, and my water broke. And in that instant, I knew I had to push, and there was no going back.
Yeah,
So you're running around, you're like, all right, do you need to get help? Do you need to get up? And I was like, no, man, we're not going anywhere. And then you had a moment of like, oh, what do we do? And I'm like, okay, we got to call the midwife.
Let her know we're the plan has changed.
So I call her and she's like, oh, it's only been 15 minutes. What's going on? And I'm like, yeah.
This is
we're
happening.
Not leaving. She's
but like,
oh.
I kind of got the vibe that she was like, oh, they're just overreacting or something. And then like she started kind of coach, like, so I had basically the coaching. I had her on the phone at that point, and she was coaching through the whole process, along with 911, because you got to get fire paramedics or whoever.
It's always good to have someone in case something has gone awry.
Yeah, because the midwife was going to be later because she had to get some equipment.
The birth kit and then come.
And so, if you can have a birth kit, whatever's in. Do you know what's in the birth kit?
Well, it's a lot of their medical stuff.
Oh, okay, so it's
so
like
it's
the
not like
stitches and so on. Like, I guess think of it like a first aid kit. Like, Clean towels, first aid.
Well, she would have had like stuff for stitches, stuff for the, some of the first initial tests that they have to do, stuff to grab the placenta and the umbilical cord,
Snips,
the snippers, the scissors. She would have also had like the documentation that she would have had to fill out and all that stuff. Like
I mean, the documentation's important, but like you're not going to have that ahead of time. Is what I'm thinking.
No, but also too, if you were in a post-apocalyptic situation or you were having a unassisted home birth, yes, there are things that you could gather to put in a birth kit.
Yeah. But anyway, continuing the story. Sorry, didn't mean to sidetrack.
That's okay. Yeah. So, anyways, 911 will direct you to get onto the bed and lay on your back so that it is easier for the
paramedic
people to basically deal with the birth. However, you will ruin your bed.
Yeah, that's that you do you is what we'll say. We're not doctors and so forth, but you do what's comfortable, and that also includes not listening to 911 operators tell you to get on the bed, and bathtub is probably the cleaner location.
We went into the bathtub because it was...
And don't fill the bathtub. Because I was like, oh, people have births in pools. So I was thinking of the pool situation, I guess. And I started filling the bathtub. And at one point, you're like, stop it. I'm like, oh. Because I started grabbing towels to put in the water. I'm like, I was trying to figure out what you wanted. It's basically, and you were trying to probably also figure out what you wanted, and because you were in the middle of doing
in the middle of having
things.
A baby, so I was not fully aware of what you were doing. But I'm like, yeah, we don't need water in the bathtub. We just need a soft landing in case we don't grab the baby when he comes out.
I started throwing the towels into the bathtub to make a soft landing, and these are sacrificial towels, by the way. Don't expect them not to get dirty.
I was gonna say I think we washed them and they were fine.
I think they were fine generally.
But yeah. Anyways, baby was born in my bathtub 15 minutes after. Actually, no, not 15. 30 minutes after you arrived, because you came home around 9:45 and he was delivered at 10:16. And there were a whole host of firemen and paramedics.
Yeah. So at some point in the sequence, I had mentioned that the door was open, the back door was open, but they went to the front door, and we have they started ringing and knocking and ringing, and I'm like trying to do the at the point that they were trying to get in. I believe the term was the baby was crowning.
Yes, the baby was crowning. The head
so
was already
I was
out.
A little preoccupied. My hands were preoccupied, and I kind of ran back, opened the door, came back, and they're like, oh, like we're well along, and I just kind of manned my post, and then I don't know what they were doing at that point, but
the firemen basically stood around in our bedroom. They got the bed ready for me to come back and lay on it.
Yeah, and then
and then the one paramedic came over and sat behind.
Well, that was well after the firemen, because
it wasn't. It was a good probably 5-ish.
The baby was fully out when the paramedics showed up. I think.
No. The paramedic. I had the head out and one shoulder, and the paramedic came and sat behind you.
One more push, and he was pretty much.
One more push, but anyway.
It felt like it was just one more push.
But yeah, he's like, see, you got this. Okay. And then I remember him mentioning that the cord was a little wrapped around where like the shoulder was stuck. So he was on the next push, he was going to help guide it out. But otherwise you basically had it.
And then they basically handed me the snips.
Yep.
And we snipped.
And then they took the baby. And then the other, well, they didn't take the baby, but they went to do their checks for the baby. And the other paramedic sauntered over and was like, hey, how you doing today? I was like, cool. I'm like, I have not eaten and I haven't had anything to drink. He's like, cool, let's set you up an IV. And we never ended up having that IV. He just poked me for no reason.
Hung it on the wall and didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, because my midwife was like, what do you mean she needs an IV? She had shown up at that point.
Yeah.
She's like, I have never seen I've never seen people move so fast out of my bedroom until I'd seen my midwife come back in. Or, like, come in, and she's like, yeah, I'm the midwife. And they're like, all right, you got this? Okay, see you later, bye. Oh, that was pretty hilarious. I don't think I've ever been naked in front of that many people either.
That's, well, from the waist down, I guess, yeah.
The most unmentionables of my unmentionables.
Yeah, I suppose. So that's like, anyways, there wasn't a lot of people, but it was enough to, I could see that being uncomfortable.
Well, I'm not, whatever, I just pushed out a baby. Like, I don't give a fuck what they want to say. I'm sure most of them have had wives and or children, or not children, but like,
they've seen
most
worse
of them have
or better,
seen things.
Or whatever you might want to say.
I'm sure there is none of them as a virgin. They've probably seen it all.
If you could prepare the home better for that, how would you?
We should go back up to the top. There we go. Unplanned. Okay, we did our story. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was. I think it's just saying like emotional journey. Like I think honestly, I was a little anxious about making it to the birth center on time, and then once my water broke and I needed to push, and I just was like, yeah, we're not going anywhere. I was like, I got this.
In the zone.
Because honestly, if this had been my first baby, I think, yeah, I probably would have been a little bit more anxious about it, but because he was my second, my body already knew what to do.
Yeah, trust in
your
your
body. So it's just like, the baby's coming regardless.
Our ancestors have been doing this for millennia.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what to do inherently.
Yeah, the body just does whatever it needs to.
Obviously, we didn't have any complications. We didn't have any...
Didn't even have to leave the house.
And I had ribs on by noon.
Yeah, best part of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, aside from the fact that I just had a baby.
But yeah, generally speaking, you know what to do. If you're queasy, maybe not a good thing for you to do. But yeah, if you could prepare the house for it, what would you do?
If I was preparing a space,
yeah.
Okay, so yes, the bathtub is the cleanest. However, there was a position I was trying to get into to help ease the coming of the baby and allow our son to be delivered more easily.
Vertically, perhaps?
No, it's basically, there's one of the things that I did to help prep my body for birth was I took I can't remember what it was called. It's called Body Ready is the program, but it's basically a program on different positions that you can situate your body to help help move along your labor. So during your the early part of your labor, there's a certain position that you should have to help open up the top of the birth canal. And then there's like the transitional labor where the baby's in the birth canal that you do a different position. Mm-hmm. And then as you are birthing, you kind of tilt to a different position, right? Okay. So when you're trying to get the baby to come down into position, you want to have your legs out wide, so your knees out wide, so your hips open up. Okay. When baby is engaged in the birth canal, you want to kind of have it more like this, so that so the baby can kind of come through. And then when you're in the pushing stage and you want baby to come out, you want to tilt your knees in and have your feet out wide, so that you can kind of have more of a this shape to your pelvis. So you're basically like, yeah, knees in, your hips kind of flare out. It's hard to explain, but honestly, if you go and watch Body Ready, Body Ready Method, I think it was, they talk about it. Anyways, so I was trying to have my knees together and splay my feet out while being kind of on all fours, and I couldn't get my feet out wide enough, and so I was not as comfortable as I could be.
All things considered.
But if I was going to do it again, which granted, if we ever decided to have a third, or surprise, surprise, a third came along, I would probably have a home birth.
I imagine.
Mostly because it'd just be so much less stress for me.
Yeah.
But I would set up a space. Like I would have it like even just a kiddie pool, just to have something that's easier to clean up than
A bathtub.
a bathtub. And I have more space to kind of move around.
There's logistics of setting up a kiddie pool in your living room. Imagine making sure there's no leaks in the kiddie pool.
Well, I wouldn't have water necessarily in the kiddie pool. It would just be to contain the mess.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, there are people who literally bring in
a big pool.
Big in pools. Yeah. Big pools that have the blow up ring and then they fill it full of water, but I wouldn't want to do that. If I'm going to do that and it's during the summertime, I'll just be outside. Thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be one thing that I would do. I would have changed my location for birth. Not on my bed, because even, I can't remember if it was the fireman or the paramedic, but they were like, whoa, you saved your bed.
Yeah.
From doing that, because I had a lot of fluid.
Well, I imagine most do.
Not everyone does.
Well, okay.
I had a lot of fluid. They told me at my my fetal assessment the day before.
If you do have to have it on your bed, waterproof coverings would be a good idea.
Get a tarp.
Yeah, like tarp isn't waterproof though. That's not. I wouldn't consider that waterproof. Like
well,
I might go so far as to say like poly, like
get some plastic sheets.
No, well, not even. Just like get some like insulation poly, that or more medical grade poly if you care. I don't know.
Well,
just like
you would be on something else. Like it would be like your plastic or whatever.
Yeah.
Waterproofing and then something comfortable.
Some plastic or something between the actual bed and like you could have a sheet on top of that. That's sacrificial. It's just but the expensive part would be like the mattress, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to destroy your mattress by having it absorb a whole bunch of fluids. You don't necessarily want to sleep on it all the time.
Yeah, that would be gross. But then on top of that too, like you want to have clean towels. If you are not having any medical professionals around, because I found too, like my midwife brought a lot of this stuff with her. I mean, granted, we also had the paramedics leave a whole bunch of towels behind, but medical professionals will bring a lot of the stuff that you need for the necessary supplies. But if it is an unplanned, like unassisted home birth, unassisted meaning no medical professionals with you, then yeah, you're going to want clean towels, you're going to want some warmer water, you're going to want to have like, what are some other things that I could, can utilize? Like it's tough, it's risky if you don't have anyone with you, because if you do happen to have a situation where you have a rupture of your membrane or...
Well, make sure to have quick access to emergency contacts, including midwives, doulas, and emergency services. Like, just have that as part of your plan, just in case, unless it's not an option, obviously. But, just making sure everybody who's there stays calm and focused. I did my part. I as small as it was, like I was in the zone though, and making sure that trying to tend to all of your needs as best I could.
I had to basically yell at you to go and get the door before the fireman broke it down.
Well, they should have been smart enough to figure it out, and I was trying to communicate through.
Door, yeah,
I was trying to communicate through 911 to tell them to go through the back, but anyway, that's beside the point. As the partner in the situation, doing a course or reading a book ahead of time is a huge asset. Obviously, the more you know, the better you are.
Like, one thing that we did with our daughter's birth, I mean, not that she was a home birth, but, one thing that we did with her was we actually took, like, I don't know what to call it, but it was basically a class. Mm-hmm. We took it with, and we had doulas with our first. So they did a lot of the explaining of, like, what you could do to support me. Yeah. How the birth process would go, so that, like, I mean, me being medically knowledged, I was like, all right, cool, I know where this is going. But for you, it gave you something to at least from what I envisioned.
I learned a lot. I learned plenty. I mean, it's again, knowing the more you know, the better you are. Is really, there's nothing wrong with learning more.
Well, knowing the stages of labor and how things might progress and how long things might take, I think all of that kind of gives you perspective.
Mm-hmm.
None of that necessarily applied to me.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm in labor.
The thing I think we varied on, like, obviously it was our plan, but like you took veto on most things, and that's perfectly fine. I think the one thing that we kind of varied on is like, do we want our child part of the
Yes.
process? And I'm like, I thought it would have been a good idea, but you're like, no, I don't want her there. I'm like, that's fine. So make sure you figure that out ahead of time if that's an option, as at least part of your plan. Everybody has a plan until somebody gets punched in the face, but it's one of those things. At least have a plan A, B, and C, just to have, just to know what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is what happens.
Well, and my main reasoning for that was originally we were going to be obviously not in the house. And with that too, it was like going through the birth process. I don't want to be constantly thinking about where my other child is in a role, in like the mentality of like I'm providing care, right? Like it would be easier for someone else to be focused.
You didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also too, my thought process was our daughter is 4 and I don't want her to be scarred for life. Because I don't know what I'm going to be like when I'm having a baby. She was already freaked out enough when I was going through contractions, and it was the sweetest thing because, like, I had a really powerful contraction after, like, I woke her up and told her about swimming. And she was like, oh, Mama, are you okay? And I was like, I love you, my dear, but I cannot have you touching me right now because, like, when I'm in a contraction, you can't touch me. She's like, okay. And then she, like, grabbed a blanket and she pulled it over my legs, and she's like, are you okay? But she was so concerned. She was like, are you like, I could see the fear on her face. And then when she was driving away, like, because obviously your sister picked her up, but like the fear of like, are you going to be okay, was like evident on her face, and I wouldn't want to have to worry about also mitigating fear and trauma for her.
That would have been my job, though, right? At the end, I feel.
But then you wouldn't have delivered your son.
Well, yeah. I mean, I imagine the fireman and paramedic would have been there too, but it worked out really well for us.
Yeah.
is what I'll say.
If she had been a little bit older and expressed interest in going and like being around, sure, no problem.
Yeah, doing a first aid course, I've done one now, but in hindsight, I would have liked to have that under my belt prior to. Yeah, I think that would have been helpful. And
I think too, like, at least from the birthing partner, the birthing partner in this situation, having my support person, aka you, knowing a little bit about like different techniques to help ease, discomfort and pain, different techniques to help calm down, for myself, not just for you.
Oh my god, oh my god.
But like, I know and I didn't really do this with our son because I kind of already had a list in my head, but with when we were preparing for our daughter's birth, I had a list of like, these are the different things that I think we could use while I'm in labor. Like, I had aromatherapy stuff. I had a cool mist fan. I had, oh my goodness, so many different things. Like there was counter pressure techniques. There was like, I had like a scarf that you could hold up my belly with and like things like that. So I would like to say, like, if you are going to be a support for that person, figure out what works best. Like, for me, I couldn't be touched during a contraction. It was too much stimulation for me. Right. But some people want to be touched.
Yeah. Communication is key.
Yeah, communication and recognizing that the person who is there supporting needs to be there supporting and not trying to, serve their own directions or agenda, right?
Yeah. obviously I was the primary person in the birth process, other than and everybody else was kind of supporting me in that. So, um, make if you're role reversed, if it's like a doula or a midwife is there, um, you know, help them out, right? So, if you're not comfortable as hands on as I was, then be the support, get the towel, get the, you know, snips, get the whatever, open the
Mm-hmm.
bag, hold this. If you're safe to do so, if you're gonna faint at the sight of blood or something, make yourself safe so they don't have to worry about you. I guess
Yeah.
is another thing.
And also, too, though, I would say in that situation when you do have healthcare professionals around, your role might also be more to attend to the birth person.
Yeah. Uh, you know, make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you know, anything you
Yeah.
need.
I need water, I needed food, whatever.
Well, I got you ribs going,
Yeah.
so we got that. Um, yeah. Postpartum care and recovery. Obviously, the midwife for us took care of a lot of that. I was a little hands off, and I don't know how detailed you want to get, but um, yeah, obviously there's
There was things that needed to be done. Like before basically I delivered our son and then
you have to deliver
the
the
placenta,
placenta.
yeah. So after he was born, my contractions basically stopped and I was like, okay, cool. And then once my midwife got there and I was able to move on to my bed, um, that was when my contractions kind of kicked back up again. I think they gave me I can't
I feel like
remember.
she gave you something.
I was gonna say I can't remember if she gave me a shot of the oxytocin or not,
I
but
think so. I think that was a yes.
yeah, okay. I couldn't remember. Um, but anyways, I
I wrote
delivered.
it down so I could refer to my notes.
It's all good. I ended up birthing my placenta with her assistance. But yeah, it was. I don't know where I was going with this. Oh yeah,
Postpartum,
and then there was some like minor
aftercare.
minor stitches that needed to happen, um, which that was entertaining in and of itself.
I
Um,
think a cutting board was involved.
a cutting board and a cookie sheet.
Yes.
Mostly because they needed a flat surface to like boost me up and like support me that wasn't my bed, so that they could actually do stitches. Um, it was
So
entertaining.
keep that as part of your
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 birth kit.
Cookie sheets and cutting boards. Not what you would expect to have. But yeah, it is a consideration to have a hard surface if you.
Well, it was either that or they moved me, right? And they didn't really want to move me
No, that's fair.
at that point.
Do you have any mental health considerations?
I mean, postpartum depression and anxiety are pretty major. In terms of like, that's the biggest.
Would you say the ribs were a mental health boost in this situation?
Any food at that point because I had not eaten yet. Um, but yeah, like in terms of mental health, the biggest things that they watch out for are postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression. In the odd case, you could also have postpartum psychosis. That's very rare in comparison. Um, but they also do like you want to watch for your bleeding and like how that's going because I know it's like if you bleed through like a pad in an hour, it's like that's too much. You need to go and see someone because you could be hemorrhaging. If you have too like the clots are too big, you got to be aware of that too. Pain management, like
Wow.
you just gave birth to a baby. You're gonna be a little bit sore. Um, so just finding ways to manage that.
Also, just the newborn care. Making sure that you have a place for the newborn to sleep. Starting to figure out,
Your feeding
feeding
schedule.
schedule. Just the whole concept of breastfeeding or
Mm-hmm.
nursing. Whatever you're going to be doing.
Yep.
And whatever ends up working for you, the sleeping
Yeah.
arrangements, um, sleeping schedules, who's doing what, and making sure that everybody's cared for and scheduled with the healthcare providers if you're using them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was really nice. Like, even just your support network, right? Like, I know you were able to work from home for the first week.
yeah,
You were home, and that was helpful enough that, like, you know, it gave me a little bit of a separation between, like, not even just a separation. We were able to have
transitioning to.
our daughter kind of come downstairs and be present, like, in your space, but not, like, with you, you know, necessarily interrupting everything with you. And it
Yeah.
gave her a break from me, and, like, me only being with her brother type of thing. And I think it helped ease that transition a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a partner that's able to take time off or, you know, work from home or whatnot, just having, like, a support network in
Yeah, whether it's your
involved.
parents, your
Siblings, aunts, uncles, whatever, right?
friends, yeah. That's important to have. Build it and have it.
Yep.
Just in general, that's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
But life tips. um, do you know any? Oh, this sounds interesting. Myths about home births. Is there any myths that, like, would you consider a home birth safe?
I would say it's safe. It's about as safe as any other space, with the caveat of if you have the proper care.
So,
Because you can give birth at home. It's just if something goes awry, it's now you have to take a trip to the hospital,
mm-hmm.
right? But it's about as safe as it can be in the best of situations, right?
Yeah.
Like, you could still have a situation develop in the hospital. You're just closer to care
Yeah,
in a hospital,
theory.
right?
We live in Canada, so it's
Yeah.
we have public health care, and it has pluses and minuses and
Which
everything.
is one of the I would say that the whole, like, the home birth is safe or isn't safe type of situation. That's one of the reasons why we called 911, to have support on deck, because if something were to happen
You don't
and our
want to be in a
midwife wasn't
situation.
there, right?
Yeah,
So
you don't want to be in that situation where
but
you're.
everything was fine.
Yeah,
I had it.
Like, again, it was really just abundance of caution that we did it. Did we end up needing it? No. And so, you know, the I guess concept that you won't have options for pain relief at home, you know, it's still there. It's just obviously not in the capacity of your midwife isn't walking around with the epidural. Yeah.
Well, midwives don't give epidurals anyway.
That's what I'm saying. You know, you're not gonna have that kind of relief if that's what you're expecting. But again, not giving birth, was it manageable?
Yes, I had 2 births that had no medical interventions whatsoever,
So,
in terms of, like, pain relief. There are obviously things that you can, like, one of the things in the birth kit was a little canister of nitric oxide, which I believe I'm saying that correctly, but the laughing gas, that's kind of the highest level of pain management or pain relief that they can offer through midwifery care. Anything over and above that,
I just imagine just laughing manically as you're giving birth or something.
I mean, it's a possibility. I've never had the pleasure of enjoying it.
You should have taken it for fun.
I had already given birth at that point. It's not like it could be like, hey, give me a shot of that.
Give me a shot of that gas.
But one thing that my midwife also...
How does that even work? Why did you start laughing when you get... Anyway, sorry, I just had that realization, like, how does gas make you laugh?
You can Google that later, or chat GPT it later. Anyways, one of the other things that my midwife was able to do, or at least talk to me about, was, what was it called? It was water injections?
Oh, yeah, it, like, fluid between the skin.
Yeah, it was a really interesting thing, and I was like, wow, I'm kind of interested in, like, figuring out what this is. And I was open to it. But yeah, it was basically like they would put a bolus or like an amount of water, saline. I can't remember if it was in a specific spot. It was around the hips,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like a bee sting, but for whatever reason, it helped lessen pain. And it was kind of almost like a placebo-y type of effect, but also just the way your body works in terms of pain relief. It gave the body something else to focus on. Never needed it because by the time I was ready to push, all the pain kind of disappears, for me at least. But yeah,
That's
it was
fair.
really interesting. For a home birth, generally speaking, if you are considering a home birth, you have to be in the low risk pregnancy category.
Yeah.
Obviously.
If you've had a C-section, does that put you in a higher risk
Yes.
automatically?
Yeah, because especially if you're trying to have a vaginal birth after a cesarean section, so a VBAC is how they say that.
Okay.
Vaginal birth after C-section.
Feedback.
It puts you at
Medical people and their acronyms.
puts you at a higher risk of a whole host of situations, especially depending on how long the labor goes. The further along it goes, the more likely it is that you're going to end up in a C-section again. Which is why some people will just go and do C-section again. It's the chair. The chair's squeaky.
Oh, that's why I'm like, yeah, I'm hearing something. But anyway.
Obviously, if you have a home birth and it is accidental, there might be...
Or unplanned. I wouldn't say accidental.
Well, it could, yes. If you have an unplanned...
Oops, I had a birth.
It happens. If you had an unplanned home birth, like, sometimes it's an emergency situation, right? Like, you are not expecting it and...
Or something happens and, you know, there's like... obviously, there's breathing exercises as well. This is interesting.
And hypnobirthing. Yeah, I've done a course in hypnobirthing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You're basically put in hypnosis during the birth process?
Basically you put yourself into a hypnotic state while you are going through the birth process. I was doing that.
Successfully, unsuccessfully?
I was learning it for our daughter's birth. So I had better techniques going into our son's birth, but
You weren't actively using it during the birth process?
Not intentionally. I just went off into I was not physically in my body. I was gone. I was kind of dissociated watching myself give birth, sort of.
Fair. Yeah, I would say, generally speaking, they're safe.
Yeah.
As long as you're low risk and as long as you
have all your safety, your ducks in a row. You've got your healthcare professionals and whatnot.
Yeah, so have at her.
Hey, honestly, I found my home birth as intense as it was to just like wake up and basically be like, "There's a baby coming today," and not being able to leave the home.
That was an advantage.
I found it so much more relaxing.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have to get shuttled to another room. Like, I remember when we had our daughter...
It's not an alien space to you, either. It's like, you're comfortable. You're home.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I remember when we had our daughter, I was, like... I kind of just get thrusted into this baby. Then the nurses are coming in. They're giving you the fundal massage, which is, like, basically pushing your uterus down into the spot that it should be. And it isn't heckin' uncomfortable. And then yeah, I don't know. I said fuck earlier, and now I can't say hell, but whatever. But it was just like, it was really uncomfortable, and you got nurses and people coming and checking on you, and then like you got shuttled to another room, and then it was like you had a roommate. It was just uncomfortable. Being at home, it was like I pushed out the baby. You had ribs going. My midwife was really calm and relaxing.
Everybody was gone by like noon-ish.
Yeah, it was like 1 o'clock. I don't know. It was like early afternoon.
Like the process from start to finish. Like, and of course, not everybody's gonna have this timeline. It's just like, even if it was an extended timeline, what better place to rest is in your own bed.
Yeah.
And like you don't have to worry about. For our first, like there was a whole host of things that happened in the hospital where there's like, we were sharing rooms, and the person beside, like the person we were sharing the room with, clogged the toilet.
No,
and
she clogged the sink somehow.
No,
or the sink
and the
was
toilet.
Clogged. I don't remember the toilet being clogged. I remember the sink
And then
clogged.
they came in, like the maintenance
The
guy
roto-
was like like roto rooting the toilet and the sink, and like everybody's just trying to sleep after like a night of not sleeping. Basically, it's just like it was not a good time.
Then we got moved to another room, and apparently the EMR system went down, so they just lost
EMR?
me. EMR is the electronic management
records.
Yeah.
Anyway, the computers went down.
The computers went down. They didn't know where my file was, and they didn't know where we got moved to. So I was lost apparently for a period of time,
Anyway.
Which was fine because I didn't need anyone,
Well,
and I could have pushed the button if we needed anyone. But
yeah, I could have run around too. But the point is, it was less than ideal in the hospital for us the first time around.
Which is why I wanted to do the birth center, but it just never ended up happening.
Well, it's everything happens for a reason, I guess. Yeah, if you have your own birth stories that you wanted to share, let us know. Anything you wanted to discuss before we sign off?
Well, I would just say whatever way you were planning to give birth, whether that's in hospital, in a birth center, or at home, make sure you do your due diligence. You look into setting up like a birth plan, which essentially is just like your
game plan.
It's like what your do's and do nots are, what you're interested in. Like for me, I knew I wanted to go into this with having as normal a birth. What was that noise? As natural and normal a birth as possible. So like I didn't really want much pain management. I kind of wanted to feel things. The epidural scared the crap out of me. But like for some people, that's what they want. They want to go in. They want to have the medication. They want to, not feel the discomfort or the pain as much. They want to have the epidural and all that stuff. Which, like, all power to you. However you want to do your birth is however you want to do your birth. But just learn about it. Take a class. Learn, doula for our first one.
I would also encourage, if you haven't, like, if you've gone through a lot, if you've gone through a lot of the courses and course material from a medical perspective, that's great, but you'll only get a medical perspective from that. Broaden your horizons. Look at how they used to do it. Not, there's definitely a time and a place for modern medicine, but people have been given birth for as long as humans have been around. Yeah. So it's obviously
the body has a way of setting up basically, I'm gonna get on my high horse here. The body has a way of neutralizing or at least alleviating some of the pain that you experience during childbirth. That is the whole oxytocin release and, cycle. Because oxytocin, when you go into labor, you're laboring, your uterus basically triggers the response from your body. Oxytocin's released. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. You then get released a pain management type of hormone, which helps lessen the experience that you're having, lessen the pain. Granted, in my first, I was doing fine until I hit that transitional labor, which ratcheted things up like 10,000%, and it was very disorienting for me. I was actually going to ask for something when we got to triage with our daughter, but it just so happened that by the time they finally got around to checking me, I was basically at the point of pushing, and once I hit pushing, it was like everything dropped back down to like a manageable level. But your body is meant to do this naturally, and as I feel like the more calm you are and the more like at ease your body is, the body will take over and the system will actually have that cycle that it's meant to have.
Yeah, I mean, my point was just we've been doing it for as long as humans have been around. don't disqualify that as nothing. Modern medicine is great. If I have, a sign post sticking out of my spleen, take me to the hospital, please. But
Sticking
if
out of your
it's
spleen, you better go to the hospital.
it's just one of those things where like it's not my go-to for everything. So that is all.
Yes. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this lovely tidbit of information.
Thanks for tuning in. We come back every 2 weeks on Wednesday, and we just talk about random stuff. Sometimes homeschooling, sometimes home birthing,
Yep.
sometimes DIY
Gardening.
stuff, gardening, and
Homestead.
so forth.
Yes.
I'd like to get some more techie ones. I'd like to start touching base on some solar stuff. There's not much to show and tell for that. Oh, I could have brought my snips. The paramedics gave me the snips.
I was like, your snips? What snips?
The snips that you cut the cord with.
scissors.
They gave me that as a memento because I cut the cord. But
That was the second time.
they're very they're like claws. They're like anyway.
Yeah. They
Look them up.
up and they're like, wee.
They are good to use to cut the cord. I don't know how it would have worked with scissors or
No.
a knife or something. I imagine it would have been difficult.
So if you have an unassisted home birth, and you need to cut obviously you do at some point need to cut the umbilical cord, but basically the gist of it is you
Chew it off.
No, you need something to clamp the cord on both sides. So you need like a string, or you need like clamp. Either way,
I imagine at some point the people were chewing it off.
I'm not gonna say you're wrong, but either way, you're gonna need that at some point.
You could bash it off with a rock. Go.
The advisable thing to do is that if you have an unassisted home birth and your intention is to have some assistance at some point, once the baby is born and the cord has done its pulsing, because you could tie it off right away, but anyways, digress. You gotta tie off the cord on the close to the baby, give yourself like an inch or two, but then tie it off, or clamp it, whatever. And then you got to clamp another side. So you have like maybe an inch or two between the two, so that when you cut,
it doesn't make too much of a mess.
It doesn't make a mess.
Unless you like messes.
Yeah, I guess. And yes, please.
On that note.
Please, your way through it.
It's
vomit.
fine.
Anyways.
Signing off. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tony. This is
Aaron.
Have a good night.
Okay, bye. Ugh, gross. Grody.